Hello and welcome to Drive-In Double Feature Podcast. I'm Nathan,
I'm Ryan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. Before we get into today's episode, head on over to our Patreon just for $5 a month. You can help support the show. We have a bunch of bonus episodes over there. No main content is locked behind Patreon, but you do help us out in the process. Get some rentals and streaming services. But getting into today's movie, we are talking about Hornets Nest from 1970, an Italian American war movie directed by Phil Carlson. So another returning director, a director I did not know the name of until this podcast. But we did Phoenix City, which we both liked, and also Ben, which you really liked. So
Yeah, you didn't like it, you freak.
yeah, I'm one of the people that don't like Ben. Not in the rat movies, I guess. I don't know. We'll have to try more rat movies.
What's your opinion of Flushed Away?
Flushed, you know what? I don't mind Flushed Away. That one's all right. The Flushed Away gets a pass. And Ratatouille. What am I saying?
Oh,
There's some rat classics. Mouse Hunt.
yeah.
But
Rat Catcher.
Rat Catch. Oh yeah. Does that have a rat in it?
I'm sure.
Yeah. But we're not talking about a rat movie today. We're talking about a war movie, also starring Rock Hudson, famous actor from the 50s, just in a ton of movies. He makes an appearance here in what is considered the movie that killed his career, I guess, because he went on to be in TV. Or sorry, I should say killed his movie career. He was in movies after this, but he became more of a TV star after this one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with his sick mustache in this movie, which I guess he rocked for a little bit. I'm not a fan of this mustache.
He could have played one of the Italians.
He really could have. He was just trying to fit in with the group. When this movie started, and I heard all the accents and everything, I was like, oh, yeah, we're watching another Italian exploitation classic. We're here. Except this one is a little different. I'd say you don't really see a lot of World War II stuff from them. There's a few Italian World War II movies, especially at this time, because I guess Italy was really trying to distance themselves from the Nazis.
Why? What happened to them during World War II, Nathan?
Well, just so you know, the Italians were a part of the Axis powers, but they were trying to get away from that.
They thought they were doing good.
I mean, yeah, I guess, but they weren't good. Yeah, they thought, but they weren't good. But don't worry, Italy was going to make a movie that made them look better by making a movie about an adult teaching children how to use weapons and murder the enemy. So great job, guys.
What could go wrong?
Yeah. Just from that description, that is what this movie is about. Rock Hudson is an American that crash lands. I guess he parachutes into Italy during World War II. And there's a bunch of children that take him, and they work together to take out some Nazis along the way. It's a very interesting concept. I don't understand this movie's tone, really. It's such an odd, all over the place movie. It is definitely, add it to the weirdo list. This is a weird war movie to me.
Is it weird?
I think so. I don't know. I think the idea of like training these children with weapons and then having them go out and kill people, and it's kind of funny. And then sometimes it's not funny. It takes itself seriously. It's a little all over the place for me.
There's some stuff in there I really did not like. There's a couple of scenes which we'll talk about later, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I kind of dug it. I liked it.
Really?
It's not a bad. Like I watched this movie with my dad, and he liked it too. It there was some pretty comedic moments in there, I thought, but it does take it to a dark place, which there was another movie that was kind of like this, not but it was called The Cowboys. It's a John Wayne movie,
Mm-hmm.
and it came out around the same time, where John Wayne like teaches his like kids like how to like run a ranch and everything. And then eventually there's like these bandits that come in, and spoiler for this movie, if they go in like at the big finale is like these kids like killing these bandits, and Bruce Stern's like the bad guy in that one.
Oh, really? Is does that one go to as dark of a place as the ending of this one does?
No, it's that
No.
one. It's like they did what they had to.
Yeah.
They're young men now.
Yeah, because I do think there is a saving grace with its finale. I do really like the ending of this one. But I guess getting into the movie, how did you feel about the performances here? We got Rock Hudson. He's a cool dude. You know, I dug Rock Hudson in this movie.
I liked how he didn't have a name.
Yeah.
They kept calling him Soldier, and I was like,
Yep.
Soldier is fine.
Yeah, which was directly referenced in Drive. So
Oh yeah.
our
Oh,
movie connections because our main character doesn't have a name.
he doesn't talk much, and he does drive in this
Mhm.
movie.
Yeah, but the piggyback off of what you said, I know both of you liked it. I think this movie's fine. I don't really have a lot of problems with it. I guess it just didn't really stand out for me to me. It didn't go quite the places that I wanted it to go. So one of the big production things behind this movie was that Sophia Loren was actually supposed to play our main female lead in this, but she ended up dropping out. And then Silva Casina, I think is how you say it, went in and took over for her. Um I'm not a big fan of this character, I guess. She kind of gets mistreated, but she is a Nazi. It's like a weird gray area.
That one, so that's the part I didn't like about the movie was her
Mhm.
character. Not because it's like I don't know. It's like they want you to like they put her like in all these really horrible situations,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's like, are they trying to make us feel sympathetic for her? Or are they trying to be like, she's a Nazi, she deserves all this stuff that's happening to her?
That's the thing. I don't know because she's at least somewhat sympathetic because so it's like a gang of kids whose entire families have been wiped out by the Nazis that are with Rock Hudson and they're working together. And there's some really, really young children with them, like children that aren't going to be able to fight. And she's really protective of them. And at times it's like, oh, yeah, look, she's being so nice to these kids. And then other times it's like, oh, she's a Nazi and she's putting those kids in danger. Who knows what she's going to do to them?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the thing where she still very much believes in the Nazi party. Like at the whole
Yes.
time, she's like, we should give ourselves up and go to the Nazis. They'll take good care of us.
Yeah, exactly.
And everyone's like, what are you talking about? They just murdered our whole family.
Yeah, but no, she's still a lover. I mean, until the very end, because there is a Nazi that gets shot at the end of the movie, and she does run over to his side to like kind of help him out.
Well,
Um,
and she does turn full on because the Nazis like have guns, and she does shoot a couple
that's
of
true.
Nazis.
That's true. Um, but yeah, just this character, I didn't love her, but I do like the setup for this because Rock Hudson, when he crashes in, he's really hurt. The kids get him, and they go in and kidnap this doctor. There's like one young boy that just seems to like pull on everyone's heartstrings. He's like the actor of the bunch. He's like, "Oh, my mama, she's dying,
I,
please."
well, I like that. I do like the scene how they get the nurse on their side
Yeah.
because it's like the leader of the group. He
Mhm.
goes and tells the little one like, okay, I'm going to need you to start crying. And the kid's just like, he's like, you call that crying? And then he's like, how about you? He's like, you fool. Don't you know anything about crying? Like, and,
Yeah.
and he's like, you remember your father? He used to hit you, right? That doesn't mean he doesn't love you though, right?
Yeah.
And he smacks him as hard as he can. It's like, good, take that.
Yeah.
Now cry.
He's like a great director. He's like Stanley Kubrick. He will go to great lengths to get the best performances out of these kids.
But this is really that kid's movie though. Like the
Yeah,
little leader,
Aldo.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is, and I saw some stuff because this movie got really bad reviews at the time of release, and a lot of things pointed to Aldo being a bad performance, and I actually like this kid. I actually think he does a pretty good job.
I thought he did pretty well. I mean, for the amount of work he has to do in this movie, because he's pretty much the second lead in this movie.
Yeah, it's pretty much his movie, and I really like it because I feel like a movie like this, I haven't seen The Cowboys, but I feel like there was probably a kid in that was like a Boy Scout, really nice kid, but like was like a soldier, right? This kid was somewhat he, I guess he's a conflicting character, a conflicted character
He,
because he's not the most likable kid, but he seems like a genuine kid because of that.
I give him a pass somewhat for his actions because he's he's put into this really tough spot because his whole family has been murdered in front of his eyes,
Hmm.
and he's even made claims, that his sister and mother were like raped like right
Yeah.
in front of him, and he had to watch that too.
Hmm.
And he's kind of like he's a teenager. He's got all this angst. He's probably he's just a little hothead right now. He
Hmm.
wants he's really angry at the world, and that's why he's kind of acts out this way. And so that's why I kind of give him a pass more so. I mean, I don't feel like he did a bad job. He To me, it's like for the movie that they were trying to make, I thought he did pretty well.
Yeah, I no, I agree. I actually don't think he gave a really bad performance, and he has some good moments. So the whole deal is that these kids really want revenge. That's like their big deal. They want to go back to their hometown where their parents were killed, and they want to like wipe out the Nazis. Rock Hudson has different plans. There is a dam that he wants to blow up in order to kill like thousands of Nazis. Uh, but these kids, like, I think it's funny how they outsmart him, just by like, I think, what do? They hide his remote detonation bombs, and they're like, well, you aren't going to get those unless you you kill all of these Nazis for us.
Right. So they're pretty much like, well, if you want us to help you, you have to
Mhm.
help us do this mission. He's like, I ain't doing that at all. Like Rock Hudson in this one, he's very, very quiet, very stern, I guess is the word, or just very like,
Mhm.
like I don't give a crap about you kids. I just want to do my mission type of thing.
Exactly. Like, I don't care if some kids die along the way. You're gonna help me get this accomplished, pretty much. But he does learn from those actions later on. I do think of like his like unwillingness to help these kids. Because way later in the movie, I mean, we'll kind of go back, but they're at the dam and they end up having a shoot off there, and Aldo actually kills another kid along the way, and I actually think
On
that's like
purpose.
on purpose, and I think that's really depressing. That's the themes of this movie. I feel like is like kind of like a cycle of violence. Like, we have adults teaching kids violence, and then it just kind of goes around in a circle. It's sad.
Well, and because that's one of the things that the character Bianca,
There you
yeah,
go. Yeah.
I, that's one thing she's trying to say is that they're just children. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're turning them into soldiers. Because throughout the whole movie, Rock Hudson is showing them how to use a gun and how to infiltrate and sneak onto this dam, how to use explosives, that
Mhm.
sort of thing. And it's because, and Rock Hudson kind of makes the claim like, hopefully, he's like, hopefully you'll never have to use these guns ever. And the kid's like, no, we want to use these guns. We want to kill these Nazis. And
Uh-huh.
that's, I mean, that's kind of what happens. Like, they go to the village eventually and they do blow up all the Nazis, and the kids go in and shoot them all with their machine guns and everything.
Yeah.
And then later, like you said, Aldo is using like this little machine gun, like this mounted machine gun, and he's just like going to town, and he's just so in the
Mhm.
zone that one of the kids gets in front of his gun, and he's just like just shoots him just to get him out of the way.
Yeah.
And when the dam is eventually destroyed, Bianca, they're like, oh, it was a successful mission. And she's like, well, they can always build another dam. And just kind of like these kids are ruined now. Like their
Yeah.
whole that they whatever childhood they have is gone now.
Yeah, innocence is gone. Their parents are dead. Um, yeah, and I mean Aldo even gets even crazier after that, because even after he does that, he doesn't feel instant remorse really, because there's kind of like a Nazi captain that's throughout this whole movie. He can kind of be considered the main villain of this movie if we're going to point a finger at somebody. Sergio Fantoni, if you didn't know,
But
this movie is Italian, but he's playing Captain Frederick von Hecht, and yeah, he does a good job as a blonde haired Nazi captain. He kind of has a presence, but early in the movie we see that him and Aldo kind of have a relationship together. They have like a weird connection.
yeah, well, because they're occupying Aldo's village,
Mm-hmm.
and like he's kind of making himself at home, and Aldo kind of poses as a little shoe shine boy, and he kind of uses that to feed wrong misinformation to him, so that way,
Yeah.
because because Rock Hudson wants to use the transmitter,
Mm-hmm.
and the only way he can do that is like, oh, like I know the soldiers over there in this other village, you need to go over there. So
Yeah.
that he kind of has that relationship where he's just kind of feeding him this information in exchange. He gives him money or whatever.
Yeah, and that actually leads to one of the better sequences in the movie, where it's like a heist where they have to get Rock Hudson in to talk on the radio and get connected, because they all work together. They whistle. One of the sillier lines is like, "Oh yeah, this is what we do when the Nazis are around," and they whistle. And then Rock
Mm-hmm.
Hudson's like, "Oh, well, that's what we have to do when we have to cheese it when the police are around," or something like that. But yeah, that sequence is pretty good. It actually feels pretty tense.
I wanted to get into kind of the parts I didn't like.
Okay, yeah.
So after they kind of kidnap the nurse Bianca and they bring her there, they
Hmm.
want her to treat Rock Hudson because he's injured,
Hmm.
and and then the kids like start ripping off her clothes. That's like these little kids
Yeah.
like ripping off this woman's clothes, and like, oh, we should just do to her what the Nazis have done to our mothers and sisters. And I'm just like, oh God, like
Yeah.
it's just
It's one thing to have that, because we watch plenty of movies with the subject matter in it, but it's like a whole different thing when children are talking about like taking advantage of this woman. It's an extra layer of gross.
yeah. And then they double down on
Hmm.
this. Later, there's a scene where Bianca and Rock Hudson kind of have this alone moment where they're kind of talking, and she's pleading with him to, you know, don't go through this mission. And then all of a sudden, a Nazi tank appears,
Hmm.
and Rock Hudson throws her down the ground to keep her quiet, and then just assault, like molest her, rapes
Yeah.
her, whatever. It's just like, why? Like,
Yeah,
did we really need this part?
yeah, I'm sorry for laughing, but it really is out of nowhere. It's like you said, it's very random. He throws her down to like hide, and then he's like, "Well, I guess I'm here." It's the kind of deal. It's like really like,
But yeah, he says now you're going to treat me or
yeah.
whatever.
It's obviously just a sex scene thrown in the movie just to have a sex scene in the movie, which is weird because it's a movie. I would think that it was be. Well, I guess that would make sense then. That it's aimed kind of at teenage boys, maybe like it's like a fantasy type deal. Like, oh, I could go kill some Nazis, kind of deal. I don't know.
I guess so, but I was not a fan of it. I thought it was
No.
I thought it was just so gross. I'm like, why? Like it's like why did we have to do this? To me, it was very unnecessary. But other than that one, that was like the only like real egregious scene that
Hmm.
I did not like. I do like though, like how realistic they do portray a lot of the killings in here. They do show them like they don't shy away from violence.
No, yeah, it's a super violent movie. And it has good use of blood, but it's not like super like in your face, like, oh, look at these cool effects. It tries its best to show you like this is what war is like, this is what your violence is gonna be like. It's not gonna be fun.
And then the other part I do like is when the other Nazi officer shows up, and he's kind of like, it's like, okay, I'm in charge here, type of thing. And
Hmm.
what was his name? Hecht.
Yeah, Captain Hecht.
Yeah, he shows he he ends up shooting that other the other Nazi officer, because the other guy was like, I'm in charge here, and he shoots him. And he's
Yeah.
like, oh, he because after the village gets torched, he's like, oh, he couldn't bear to see it, so he ended his life. And he's like, oh, by the way, I seem to have misplaced my pistol. I need a new one.
Yeah. No, I thought that was pretty good. You know what else is pretty good? The score, Ennio Morricone. Like you can't go wrong with it. He does a great job.
Yeah, I did notice that. I was like, why is this? I was like, it always seems like every time I hear his score, I'm like, I really like this score, and then I just look up who it is. I'm like, oh, that's
Like,
why.
yeah, he even did because the kids whistle a lot in this movie. They even whistle together, and I guess that was actually composed by him as well. The whistling theme for this movie.
Did he orchestrate the whistling?
I don't know. According to this, the theme was used in the film by the children themselves. So they actually got the children together to whistle the song he made. So I guess that's
Oh,
cool.
good. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, you want to hear a little funny thing about the promotion of this movie? It's kind of like your Godzilla ones where you talk about weird promotions. Do you know about this? How this movie was promoted, or
uh,
how they wanted it to be promoted?
in schools
And now, not in schools.
to children.
Yeah. Well, what they wanted to do is they wanted to have shop fronts, like, like window shopping. And they told people to hire boys, 15-year-old, it would be preferred, dressing up in army uniforms, put a hornet's nest without the hornets, of course, in the window as promotion for this movie.
Hmm.
Bizarre.
Like, was there even a sign that said
I don't
Hornet's Nest?
It looks like nobody actually did it. It was just part of like the guide. Like, they would release like sheets and stuff with it and be like, hey, this is how you should promote the movie for your theater.
Like, can you imagine? Like, if I saw that, like, I just saw like a little boy in army
Uh-huh.
attire and with the Hornet's Nest, I would be like, huh?
I,
Like,
I would think it'd be some weird art piece.
yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be like, oh, is that a movie? I want to go see whatever movie that's promoting.
Yeah, what's going on with this?
Yeah, no.
Uh,
Um,
well, I guess we should talk about the ending of the movie.
yeah, Aldo's got the high
Um,
ground. and then Rock Hudson is below and he gets a rock thrown at him. But well, did you want to talk about what happens right before that with
yeah,
Captain Hecht? Okay, go
yeah.
ahead.
Well, that's one thing I guess I was going to maybe, it's how I envisioned how what I was thinking was going to happen in this movie was that,
Mm.
because it does show Aldo going rogue, and he's going to go after Hecht himself. Like, I'm going to go get him, and he's got his little
Hmm.
pistol. And I thought what was going to happen is that Hecht was going to kill him, or
Mm.
something along those lines, or something like that. But all that happens is they build up Hecht as this whole time as this like really evil like
Yeah.
Nazi guy, and then I kind of think he kind of peters out at the end. It's just like it doesn't really have a real satisfying conclusion, I don't think.
No,
With
at least not with him, right? With the
no,
villain. Because
no,
yeah, the way they handle it is just a little is weak because he gets shot, and then Rock Hudson kind of comes in and he's like, "Hey, Aldo, don't do it, don't kill him. We're gonna take him as prisoner." And it's kind of a fight, and it just ends up that he ends up just becoming a prisoner of war.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's not like the Inglorious Bastards.
yeah, yeah, which is a wonderful ending. I was watching this and I was like, Tarantino would like this movie. If he hasn't seen it, he should see it.
Oh, I'm sure he has.
Yeah, he's seen so many movies.
Mm,
Um,
but no, I do really, I did like the ending where Aldo, so the American army shows up, and all the kids are like saved. They puts them all into the truck, and then Aldo at first is kind of reluctant. Doesn't
Mhm.
He's still very angry at what happened because they didn't kill Hecht, and Rock Hudson kind of goes after him, and he has like this mental breakdown. He throws a rock, hits Rock Hudson in the head, and he's
Mhm.
busted open, and Aldo just kind of breaks down emotionally. And I actually thought that was like one of the best, like one of his better performance parts in the movie.
Yeah, I actually really that this is the part I liked because it ended it on a very dour, real note, I guess. Like I feel like a lot of other movies might handle it like, we saved the day or whatever, we're here in but this kid obviously has dealt with so much trauma. He's murdered a friend, murdered a bunch of people, seen his whole family murdered and rape, and he obviously has all this baggage. And I like Rock Hudson picks him up and kind of cradles him as he's crying, and he walks back. It's actually a really touching moment.
Yeah, because Rock Hudson the whole time, like I said, he has no emotional attachment. So this is like the one time where he's like treating these kids like they're actually kids.
Exactly. I think he finally get it really late in the movie. He finally goes like, okay, that we've taken this too far. When he breaks those guns in front of them, when he just takes them and
Mm-hmm.
smashes them on the log, I think he finally comes to his senses.
Right, and I did like that because he's just kind of like realizing all the stuff that's happened to him, and
Mhm.
like you said, I if this were any other movie, I don't think it'd be like the kids like all riding on the truck together, like hooray! Like
Yeah, but not no. This one is a little more is a little bit more of a depressing approach. Uh,
yeah, they're not afraid to do something like that. I really do like when movies go for like a really realistic approach.
yeah, I in all seriousness, I do think it feels more like a Vietnam movie than a World War II movie. You don't really see as many depictions of World War II, at least like Americans fighting Nazis, to be this negative. You see that more in Vietnam movies. So I maybe since this was so close to Vietnam, that kind of bled into this one.
Yeah, and I don't really feel like I, I guess at the time, war movies were the tone of them were taken in a very different path because before, um, like I try to think of more of like World War II movies. It's like
Yeah,
we killed the Nazis. Like it's America
exactly.
wins. Like everyone's happy. Like they're all like.
Mhm.
I mean, there might have been some people that died, but everyone's feeling good at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And I think Vietnam kind of changed everyone's like, oh no, like war is hell. Like you have
Yeah,
to.
because we were seeing like they always talk about that, but you on the news on TV we were seeing more actual footage of the war, and we were losing that war, so it was like it is definitely a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, World War II, it's very easy to think like, oh, well, because they won, America wins, that everyone was probably really happy. But there's still soldiers that still have to deal with trauma even back then. It's just nobody really talked about it back then. It was just kind of like, oh, he's a little crazy. He's the crazy guy now, type of
Yeah.
thing.
Oh, if he hears one if he hears like one rock fall, he freaks out. But that's him. That's the weird guy.
Yeah, now he just reacts really badly to loud noises. What a weirdo.
Yeah. No, it definitely I appreciate that about this movie is maybe it's a different portrayal of World War II in 1970. Um, but I do think that wraps it up. I say check it out. Why not check it out? It's an interesting little war movie.
Yeah, this one definitely gets a recommend for me. It's so far Phil Carlson for me has been 3-0. So I've liked all three of the movies we talked about from him. So
Well, let's keep it up. We'll probably see him again, I'm sure.
can't wait.
hmm But Ryan, what are we going to be talking about on Thursday?
Well, Nathan, we're going to be talking about The Hill from 1965, and that is going to be not streaming anywhere, unfortunately. That one you'll have to pay for if you want to watch it with us. But
It is
if you
on the
want to,
Internet Archive.
It is on the Internet Archive, so if you want a free version, you can. But if you want full HD, you'll have to shell out a couple bucks.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm excited to watch that one. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to email us at driveanddoubleFeaturePodcast@gmail.com. You can also tweet at us at DIDFpod. But until next time.
Until next time.